Look up and see the road ahead. Brother Hua's style is like this. We can do a two-way screening. Whether I'm talking about middle school or high school, before I dive into any big topic, I always like to look at the big picture first. Before burying myself in the work, I first open up the entire map because I like to stand at a God's eye view perspective to know what I'm dealing with overall, and then understand the relationships between each part, and then I learn them one by one. This way, my learning is more targeted and purposeful. This approach is helpful in middle school, but it's especially important in high school. So before we officially dive in, let me first guide everyone to look up at the road ahead, and let's take a quick overview. This is the entire four-year chemistry curriculum, and here's how its difficulty is distributed. In other words, the path you'll take over the next 4 years, and at the highest level, you need to understand one thing, which is that for all of you who will enter high school during your first year, among all subjects that will hit you the hardest, which subject is it? It's chemistry. The hardest subject on the college entrance exam isn't chemistry, but the one that hits hardest in your first year is, every year it's the same. The subject with the biggest impact is chemistry. Why is that? The main reason is directly related to what you're facing now. Middle school chemistry is so easy. I mean, in terms of content volume, so easy. Not that it's easy for you personally, but the entire third year of middle school chemistry compared to the 3 years of high school chemistry ahead is particularly simple. Why is it so simple? Because it's the first year, similar to when you first started learning math, just at the beginning. There's a lot of basic foundational material, things to memorize and remember. So let me emphasize this point. Chemistry is not a humanities subject. It's just that in your first year of middle school, when you're learning it, just like when you learned math in first and second grade, you inevitably have to memorize things. You need to know many basic rules and memorize multiplication tables and such. But that doesn't mean math is a humanities subject. It's just that when starting any new subject, there's a lot you need to remember and memorize, along with general knowledge and common sense stuff. So, first of all, don't worry. Let me make one thing clear. Throughout your entire 9th grade chemistry year, all the way to the high school entrance exam, it won't be too hard for you. As long as you do the right things. Don't make it harder on yourself than it needs to be. 9th grade chemistry all the way through the entrance exam, within the entire chemistry system, it's actually quite simple. We call it the demo version of the game. First, let's look at the overall situation you'll face this year. Get an accurate sense of its difficulty level. Once you understand the biggest positioning for the whole year, for this specific year, or for the entire 9th grade chemistry subject overall, everyone take a look at this diagram. There's one point here that's especially important. What stage are you currently in? The nurturing stage, the stage of being nurtured. First of all, there's a big transition between middle and high school, and within middle school itself. Note that for all of 9th grade chemistry, the entire entrance exam chemistry system, no matter which version you're using, no matter where you're taking the entrance exam, it has 2 parts within itself. The system itself has 2 sections, with a big difficulty jump in the middle. The first section, which is the stage most of you are experiencing right now, I call it the nurturing stage, but then, don't forget, when you get to the real core part of the entrance exam, the part that's actually tested on the entrance exam, it goes through a process from nurturing to challenging. Why is there this process? Come on, let's look at this specifically. First of all, this chart is extremely important for the entire 9th grade year, no matter which version of the textbook you have, no matter where you're taking the entrance exam, no matter how they rearrange things, the overall system, what will you be facing? We call it 8 modules, 3 lines, 8 modules, 3 lines. The 8 modules go without saying, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But what are the 3 lines? For this trial version of our third year junior high game, what you need to do is this. You need to organize one line about matter, stringing it all together. The second is about experimental conditions, which has nothing to do with the versional progress. The third is a very important theoretical line. This theoretical line will run through your entire middle and high school years. These are called the 3 lines. Then these 3 lines are placed within the 8 modules. So what does each one correspond to? Let's first talk about the matter line. The overall framework is roughly structured like this. It revolves around the conditions of matter. First, when we start, we need to understand the changes and properties of matter. This is something that any textbook will teach you first. After that, there will be slight differences. Then I'll arrange them in order from simple to difficult. After you understand the basic changes and properties of matter, what's the first and simplest thing we can study? It's air. Then after that, within air, the most important thing for us is oxygen. Then moving on to our daily lives, for us humans besides breathing, the most important thing is water. Then moving to our modern society, a very important thing is fuel, something that provides energy. Then the remaining 3 are the core of the high school entrance exam. Metals, the things that are really tested in chemistry on the entrance exam, solutions and acids and bases. This part I didn't arrange according to any particular textbook version, but purely based on what the entrance exam requires, arranged for you from simple to difficult in order. This is your first line. For all of third year chemistry, you just need to thoroughly study these things for me. That's about matter. Then the second is experiments. We say chemistry is an experiment-based discipline, right? So in all of third year chemistry, what related experiments do you need to master? First up, the opening module covers basic instruments and fundamental lab operations. This part corresponds to the first multiple choice question on the high school entrance exam, or the second multiple choice question. Then we move on to air. This corresponds to a very important experiment called measuring oxygen content in air. Many textbooks, many versions of teaching materials present it quite superficially, but honestly speaking, this operation, this experiment, it's in all of middle school chemistry in terms of error analysis for the high school school entrance exam chemistry, the most complex experiment. Overall, it's not difficult, but its error analysis is a bit more complicated. Then we get to oxygen. What experiment does this module correspond to? Combustion. Oxygen supports combustion, so there will be corresponding combustion experiments. And what else is related? Then we come to water. What does this module correspond to? What experiments do you need to study? First, how do you wash it clean, add water? Then how do you decompose it? And what happens during the decomposition process? To electrolyze water, these two very important modules are called adding water and electrolyzing water. In recent years, high school entrance exams, their weight has been continuously increasing. For example, previously water-related experiments, the high school entrance exam didn't favor testing them. In the last 2 or 3 years, various regions have been testing them more and more, and the point values are getting larger. Adding water and electrolyzing water. Then we get to fuels, which is about a series of property exploration experiments. What else? These are our first 5 modules. This is the corresponding difficulty curve, the foundation building stage, then comes the challenging stage. What does that experiment test? It tests experimental inquiry. It's not testing a specific operation or a specific analysis. It tests the entire experimental inquiry process. This corresponds to any region's high school entrance exam, the big question worth the most points, which is the experimental inquiry question. It's mainly presented in the form of medal activity series. This difficulty is relatively high. This is about experimental conditions. Next, the third, theoretical conditions. Note that theoretical conditions in the entire foundation building stage, you see the front is called foundation building, the back is for challenging. So what exactly is killing? The core of the middle school exam in the holding stage, when I taught you the beginner's tutorial from the early stage, I explained everything. What are the theoretical conditions divided into? First, the microscopic world. The entire microscopic system you learn in middle school, then in high school, there's a dedicated book called structural chemistry. What does it cover? Molecules, atoms, ions, then elements at the macro level. That's one condition. And then symbols are another condition, which is the language of chemistry. From element symbols to valences to our chemical formulas. It's like when we first learned language and literature, what did we learn first? The alphabet, right? Valence is like what? Then the corresponding chemical formulas, those are your words and phrases. You express the simplest meanings, then equations are your complete paragraphs to fully express a process. This is a complete language system covered in our first 5 modules, and then finally, what else is there? The law of conservation of mass. This is the foundation of the entire world of chemical reactions. That's the third condition regarding theoretical conditions. From microscopic to symbols to conservation of mass that completes it for the entire 9th grade year, 8 modules corresponding to 3 threads right here. The entire 8 modules, 3 threads already divided for you, and after dividing them, notice here I'm drawing a dividing line. You need to have this concept. The entire 8 modules, 3 threads are divided into first 5. Last 3, what are the first 5 called? Called the Novice Village tutorial, which tells you babies how to move forward, how to move backward, how to turn left, how to turn right, how to shoot, how to defend. It teaches you these most basic rules, the most basic principles, the most fundamental simple logic, and this part reflects the biggest characteristic. Learn what? Test what? This is what we call the holding stage, meaning you'll discover, as long as you basically understand, even if you only half get it, but when you're taking the exam, when you're doing problems, you'll feel pretty relaxed, you'll make mistakes sometimes, right? But if you get everything wrong, you'll feel like you've just memorized definitions. And that's it. Like, there's no systematic approach to the whole exam. You won't know how to do anything. So we often define this as the struggling phase. The easiest misconception to form at this point is that chemistry is a liberal arts subject. Chemistry is super easy. Chemistry just needs simple memorization and you can score high. This is when misconceptions form most easily. But when you truly reach the mastery stage, you'll discover this is the core of the entrance exam. The exam requirements for this part are very low. Learning this part is ultimately to apply it to metals, melts, acids, bases, salts, doing experiments, investigations, and calculations. And this is the core of the entrance exam. And what is this part called? It's called Real Chemistry Begins. Fighting the boss. You need to know what you'll ultimately face. The main focus of entrance exam chemistry is actually this. Don't be fooled by the first 5 chapters. They're mainly just like popular science and common knowledge, tutorial village teaching missions. Then when you learn these things, it's to better prepare you for this. Then to allow the exam to better assess real chemistry knowledge. And once the exam starts testing this, you need to notice that learning and testing separate here. I want to foreshadow this for you in advance. That is, in metals, melts, acids, bases, and salts, you'll notice one characteristic. The knowledge points in any chapter here are far fewer than in any previous chapter. And it doesn't sound particularly difficult either, but the biggest key point is the exam no longer tests knowledge points, but tests what's built on those knowledge points. 28 special topics, from graphs of metal-acid reactions, function graphs, to identifying substances, inferring substances, then investigating products. After reactions, this whole series of examination questions isn't testing your knowledge and understanding of concepts at all. What it tests is reasoning, induction, summarizing, analysis, and calculation. This is what real chemistry as a subject actually tests, and this is why the entrance exam centers on this, because the earlier content is called science and common sense, and often it doesn't reach the level required for the high school entrance exam. So this is what we call separating learning from testing, okay? This is the overall framework. For your upcoming goals, don't underestimate these first 5 modules, you know? And don't think you've learned them that well either. These first 5 modules mainly serve as beginner tutorial lessons. Then you really need to be prepared because you need to stay alert. There are 3 bosses waiting for you ahead, and the high school entrance exam mainly tests these 3 bosses. So now let's get back to what we need to do, which is in our first 10 lessons, we need to cover all the content in this beginner tutorial system. To what level do we need to reach to better prepare us for fighting the bosses? Everyone, please remember this. First, we need deep understanding, especially of the microscopic system, the entire theory, and then achieve proficient operation. This is our task when learning the beginner content. Don't think that roughly understanding it is enough. Roughly understanding is completely inadequate for the beginner tutorial tasks. You must be able to think through every point with complete clarity. Many conclusions shouldn't just be memorized, but should be something you can derive. And you should also be able to operate proficiently. For example, chemical equation calculations. When you see any chemical formula, you should think of 5 basic pieces of information. You need to be able to apply these 5 basic pieces of information. This is called proficient operation, and that's our goal. Once we achieve this goal, we'll be better prepared to tackle the core content of the high school entrance exam.